Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Ice the Kicker. My name is Glen and Matt, alongside, as always, Matt Ferrara. Some news breaking over the last couple weeks in the NFL. The offseason is in full swing, an offseason that we talked about last time we spoke to you guys that is shaping up to be one of the most eventful off seasons in recent memory in terms of big names moving from one team to another. We saw Stafford get moved. A month ago or so, and we got our second quarterback moving, our second star quarterback moving from one franchise to the other. That is Carson Wentz, finally out of out of Philadelphia, going to the Indianapolis Colts. Matt, this was something that we saw coming. This was a very messy and ugly and very public divorce between Wentz and the Eagles. He was not happy to be benched by Jalen Hurts. He was not happy to be coached by a team led by Doug Pederson. And there was a little bit of a idea that maybe when Doug Pederson got relieved of his duties by Philly, that they essentially chose Wentz over him. But essentially the Eagles chose nobody, and they chose to get rid of both of them. So they got rid of Pederson a couple weeks after their season ended. Now they trade Wentz to Indianapolis. So the only quarterback on the Eagles roster right now is Jalen Hurts. It's before we get into what it means for both Indianapolis and the Eagles, we can, I guess, talk about what Carson Wentz has meant to that Eagles team leading up to the season. He got drafted. He had that one spectacular year that they won the Super Bowl, got hurt towards the end of that regular season, didn't get to play in that postseason, went to Nick Foles. Since then, it's been up and down. He had a miserable season this year. There's no way around that. And, just like Doug Pederson, Carson Wentz, their legacies in Philadelphia, obviously winning the only Super Bowl in franchise history is going to cover up a lot of the disappointment in it. And it both certainly didn't end well. But at the end of the day, when history shows, when history tells the story of the Philadelphia Eagles, I think the Super Bowl championship is going to outweigh the ugliness that was the ending of this.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so too. And you just kind of hit the nail on the head there, saying how kind of right after his Super Bowl, again, the run that he didn't get to, but he was obviously a part of that team. It kind of went downhill from there. And again, everybody, when you think about Carson Wentz, besides just thinking about this year where he was terrible and just, but again, there's really no redeeming qualities in what he did this season. And then you look at the Super Bowl that they won. He wasn't even a part of that kind of playoff run. So it almost feels like Carson Wentz has a no legacy in Philly, if that makes sense. Like Nick Foles, I would say, is a more popular guy in Philadelphia. And I know it's just one of those things that every ending for the most part of a player on a team nowadays always seems to kind of get ugly. And again, it's very strange how everything kind of played out, especially with Peterson and his miscoaching and his mishandling of how to coach the game in week 17 when they played the Washington football team. And then just with everything with Carson Wentz, even just it was kind of weird how the back end of the season, he didn't even suit up. Like it was just very, very strange. Like, what if Jalen Hurts got hurt in those games at the end and he just said, screw it, like I'm not going. So just a very weird kind of situation, and something that I think Carson Wentz knew he was ready to leave the second Jalen Hurts kind of got one of the starts there.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting how we look at this 30, 40 years from now with Carson Wentz, because in 1990, right, the Giants won the Super Bowl. The Giants' main quarterback in franchise history leading up to that point and for the next 14 years before Eli came was Phil Simms. But in that Super Bowl, Phil Simms actually got hurt before that Super Bowl, and Jeff Hostetler started. But we don't remember that. Well, I don't remember that. I wasn't born, but everybody remembers
Yeah.
Phil Simms more than they do Jeff Hostetler. So
Mm-hmm.
it'll be interesting to see if that's a similar kind of situation. Obviously, Phil Simms is a Hall of Fame quarterback. We'll see if Carson Wentz ever bounces back and gets his career back on the trajectory where he could potentially maybe be a Hall of Famer. But yeah, it's unfortunate what happened at the end of Philadelphia, but thank God for them that they got that Super Bowl. So it kind of makes this messy divorce worth it. He's going to go to Indianapolis. And we talked about this when Phil Rivers retired. And we talked about it last time we spoke when we were doing a little bit of a mock draft. This roster with Indianapolis, this is a roster that's ready to win. They're essentially a
Mm-hmm.
quarterback away from really competing in that AFC. They could compete now with, assuming Wentz figures it out again. This is a roster that could compete with Cleveland and Baltimore and Kansas City. The question is going to be, can this organization and can this coaching staff um, can they unlock the potential that we thought that Carson Wentz had? Can they bring back that magic that he showed in 2017? If the answer is yes, then it's a very dangerous team in the AFC. But if the answer is no, then a year from now we're going to be on this podcast talking about who's the third
Mm-hmm.
quarterback in 3 years for Indianapolis going to be.
Yeah, I mean, again, Indy is a perfect roster. They have a phenomenal O line, probably one of the best, if not the best, in the league. They have again, they're probably going to have to re-sign T.Y. Hilton or some other wide receiver to get them another weapon. But Michael Pittman did very well this year in his rookie season. Jonathan Taylor absolutely destroyed the NFL, the running back, another rookie right there. And again, it's a very exciting time for the Colts. And again, they're a team that they've been successful for so many years. And finally, the days of seeing Curtis Painter be your quarterback because Peyton Manning was hurt, or Brian Hoyer be your quarterback because Jacoby Brissett was hurt, those days are kind of over. And Carson Wentz is night and day better than those quarterbacks I just named. And you were asking about what basically is it going to take to get the most out of him. And I think him pairing up with his old offensive coordinator and Reich, that's definitely a great step. And that's probably a reason that Carson Wentz is so excited to go to Indy, besides just kind of being the starter. But the fact that he's going to be in a system that is familiar and somewhat catered to him. So I think there's definitely a lot of potential there. I definitely think Carson Wentz is going to have a better year. Will he be that MVP caliber guy? I don't know, but you put it this way, if you're playing on that Colts roster right now, this is all on Wentz. If you can't show out on that team with that old line, this is all on you. So it's going to be make or break for him this year, and there's absolutely no excuses.
Colts didn't give up much for this trade. They gave a 2021 third round pick, a 2022 conditional second round pick that can turn into a first round pick if Wentz plays 75% of Indianapolis's offensive snaps. The track record says that that probably won't happen because Carson Wentz is a guy
Mm-hmm.
that's, injury prone, as they say in the business. Carson Wentz, I think, as you said, he's familiar with the offensive coordinator. Carson Wentz, body type wise, reminds you a lot of what the Colts had in Andrew Luck. Kind of the big, broad shouldered quarterback.
Yeah.
It's is he going to play well or is he not going to play well? I hate to make it so simple on a podcast where we're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to articulate our thoughts and make everything
Mm-hmm.
specific. But if Carson Wentz plays well, then this is a slam dunk for Indianapolis. They have their quarterback for the next 4 or 5 years, and they're going to compete, and they're going to compete for the AFC. If he doesn't, then then he doesn't. This is basically Carson Wentz's last chance because he can make the excuse that Philadelphia is a dumpster fire. Philadelphia is inept, and they're bad. They're not a well-run organization. Now he doesn't have that excuse anymore, and as you said, it's all on him and his performance.
Yeah, I mean, something that I asked Style about because he's a Colts fan and kind of was just trying to ask some of my other friends too was, is Carson Wentz that much better than Philip Rivers? And I didn't mean that in like an insulting way that on Carson Wentz, but basically the Colts were one offensive drive away from beating the Bills and seemingly probably going to the AFC Championship game and then probably losing to the Colts, but I mean losing to the Chiefs. So when you really compare, they have identical rosters to last year and then this upcoming year. Now you factor in, all right, you have Carson Wentz at the helm versus Philip Rivers. Does he make them that much better? And again, if I had to put money on, I'd say, yeah. I mean, I'd say if Carson Wentz is the quarterback of that game, I think they beat the Bills. So, I mean, that's got to be something that I'm sure that's what the Colts were looking at when they made that trade for him, was saying basically who's going to be the guy that's going to get us over that hump. Now, it might not be over the hump to beat the Chiefs,
Mhm.
but it kind of was over the hump to beat the Bills that very day. So
If
again,
you look
I
at pure potential, right? potential of the 28-year-old Carson Wentz is so much more than the 39-year-old Philip Rivers. So they're betting on potential. And if you get the
Yeah.
2017 Carson Wentz on this Indianapolis roster, they could beat anyone in the AFC. Maybe not the
Yeah.
Chiefs, but if you get an MVP type performance like you got in 2017 from Carson Wentz on a roster like Indianapolis that already has a top 10 defense, they have offensive weapons to put around him, then you should be really excited if you're a Colts fan. The problem is 2017 was 4 or 5 years ago now. That's the problem.
Yeah.
At what point
Yeah.
was 2017 the anomaly and not the norm? Because it's been
Yeah.
2018, 2019, and now 2020 where he hasn't been as good and he has been injury prone and he has had underperformance that got him benched. Like, you can say all you want about the Eagles and how they ran things and Doug Peterson, and if it was a good idea to draft Jalen Hurts for his confidence, for Wentz's confidence, or whatever. You can make any argument you want. Wentz deserved to get benched. He earned that benching. I don't think there was a vendetta against him. I don't think they drafted Jalen Hurts because they had this in their plans to get rid of Wentz in a year's time. I think Wentz saw the Hurts draft pick, and I think that it messed him up psychologically. And that's why he didn't play. That's a big reason why he didn't play well. And that's something that should concern you if you're Indianapolis, if this guy's mental toughness is good enough to handle the expectations of a team that wants to go to the Super Bowl. Do you want your quarterback to kind of be desensitized when, a talented young quarterback is his backup? That's something that you need to think about, because you want your quarterback to be the leader. You want your quarterback to be the toughest guy in the room.
Yeah, that again, it's such a tricky subject, and it's, again, honestly, it's a hard one, and that's something that obviously I saw this year with the Dolphins, and you kind of had two leaders in Tua and Fitz. I'm sure it was the same deal with the Eagles too. Obviously, they all trusted Carson Wentz, and he was their leader. Then you have this kind of young stud Jalen Hurts come in, and again shows great leadership qualities as well. Then on top of that, he was balling out for a little bit too. So when you put the two leaders together, you're going to go with the guy who is doing well. And that's kind of the unfortunate part, I think, of just leadership, is that it usually does come down to how good you are, when it shouldn't necessarily. But obviously, if all things are even, you're going to pick the guy who's playing better. And I wanted to touch upon something you said real quick that I think is awesome. That is another very hard thing to kind of predict in the NFL. And that's basically, what is an anomaly year for, say, a quarterback specifically, versus what is kind of a year that you expect them to continue. And that's something that, again, you look at Herbert, or you look at, say, someone like Aaron Rodgers, who had an MVP season, or even, say, Josh Allen, who had a year that was definitely not a norm for him. So now when you look at, say, Josh Allen and Justin Herbert, are we just going to assume that they're going to play on that level, if not progress and get better and better every year? Or are we going to say it's more of a Carson Wentz situation where, hey, that was probably more of an anomaly year? And I think that's the hardest thing for like a scout or a coach to predict. And as a fan too, I'm curious kind of your thoughts on that.
I think that you have to judge it after the fifth year. The guys like Allen and the guys like Tua and everyone that's coming up in the first, second, and third year, if they have like two really good years, then 3 and 4 and 5 can be not as good, and then all of a sudden you question. But if they in years
Yeah.
1 and 2 play really well, then you don't really have any history of them not playing well. I think in a situation like a Carson Wentz, where now we're in year 6, 7.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, 6, 7. Derek Carr, kind of same thing, that they really just had one guy, one big year. I think by years 6 and 7, I think you take the majority of what you've seen so far, especially if the one good year has been really early or in the middle, and then it's been surrounded by kind of mediocre play. Like, you can there's quarterbacks out there that it takes years 5, 6 to then get good, and then they take off. But if your year 1 and 2 are bad, and then you have a good year 3, and then 4, 5, 6 are bad, then maybe year 3 was an anomaly.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
kind of
I think that's definitely kind of what I would look at it too. And obviously, you look at any of their outlier teams, like the kind of the talent around them, like maybe they had just an awful team around them, or maybe they had a really good team around them. So it's definitely interesting to see kind of how to predict someone's future success. And obviously, that's the name of the game when it comes to football and basically all sports. But I think football, especially with the quarterback position, where we know that you need talent around you. It's
Mhm.
just a fact. It
And you
absolutely
got to be
is.
careful with these quarterbacks because there are a lot of quarterbacks that have, maybe a 6-game stretch where they're really good. They cash in on it, then they're really bad. Brock Osweiler had like a good 4-game
Hmm.
stretch with Denver, cashed in with Houston, and then we never saw him again, right? He was terrible. So it's tough to gauge the talent of the quarterback. That's why when you have one,
Hmm.
you have to make them happy at all costs. And the Eagles didn't do that with Carson Wentz. Now Carson Wentz had his own problems, and it's not, and this is
Yeah.
partially his fault that it didn't work out. But when you have someone like a Russell Wilson, a Deshaun Watson, um, a Mahomes, a Jackson, you got to make them happy because you
Yeah.
only have so many franchise legend quarterbacks that you're able to get, and when you get them, you got to hold on to them. So,
Yeah. No,
um,
definitely.
let's talk about the Eagles side of this. Speaking of quarterbacks, so Hurts is the only quarterback on that roster. Are we convinced on March 2nd that in September when Hurts is going to be the guy week 1?
I mean, I'm gonna say yeah. I mean, there was nothing in his play that would tell me otherwise. Now, for some reason, I always see that the Eagles are potential trade up candidates or candidates to draft a quarterback. Now, that to me would be kind of confusing because they're the sixth overall pick and they're more slotted to get a guy like a Trey Lance or a Mac Jones. So that would just be confusing to me. And again, I mean, like I've alluded to that. Obviously, I love competition, but like back to back first rounders on a quarter, or I mean, first and Hurts was a second rounder. It's like, especially after Hurts had a good season, it's like you're really gonna draft
It,
another
it, it
guy.
wouldn't make
That
any
would be kind of
sense because you
strange.
had Wentz, right?
No,
And then you
yeah,
drafted Hurts, and then we asked the questions then, like, why would you do that? And then you get rid of
hmm
Wentz or Hurst, and then in the first round you take Lance. Like that wouldn't make sense at all. Like saying it out loud, that
yeah.
doesn't make
That
sense.
you're basically drafting. I mean, you basically had three franchise quarterbacks within the same
12
season,
months.
which
Yeah,
that's what I mean. That it
it doesn't
would
make sense.
again. Would it surprise me if it happened? Yeah, but like one of those things where hey, like you just never know in football. You really don't. Maybe like their new coach doesn't really like Hurts. Like I have no
Mhm.
idea. Or maybe Mac Jones is a guy that they're saying, hey, we need to get this guy. You have no idea. And I think when it comes to the quarterback position, people and teams get very desperate. And if they see a quality in a quarterback that's available when their pick is up and they absolutely love it, who knows? You just have no idea. But I
I
would
think
hope not. Like,
Hurts
I think
has
Hurts
done
is good.
enough though to deserve a shot. Not to just go into training camp and not have any competition and just be the starter week 1,
Yeah.
but I think he definitely
Hmm.
deserves a shot to win the job. And in this kind of
Hmm.
situation, bringing in a veteran like a Fitzpatrick, right? Or a Mariota or a Rosen, like one of those
Hmm.
guys that's going to challenge,
Yeah.
but not necessarily come in as like a threat to the job in terms of the future. I think that's something that would
Yeah.
work for Jalen Hurts, but I definitely think Jalen Hurts deserves a look in a full training camp and a full preseason with
Yeah. No,
whoever they
I
pick with
mean,
the
you
sixth
have to.
or the sixth spot in the
Yeah.
draft. If they take a wide receiver and give Hurts a weapon, then you definitely have to see if he can do it.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, there's again, we talked about it on the mock draft. They can go wide out. They can go Kyle Pitts tight end, who's basically a wide out. They can shore up that line and maybe get Sewell if he's still there, or the guy Slater from Northwestern. So they have a ton of great avenues, I think, in their situation. Again, hey, last year was basically a wash, even though you were a game or two away from winning the division. Now you have a new coach. You have a quarterback who's finally going to get a preseason OTAs, all those stuff that he needs, and you're going to have a new system and all that, and you're going to have a player who's hopefully top six talent. So I think they're in a very good position, but drafting a quarterback to me would make no sense.
They have their problem is they don't. I don't think they have cap space. I think they're in cap space hell, to be honest.
Yeah, they're struggling with it,
If
and
I
then you
remember
factor in
correctly, I
like
think they're really over in terms of money they can spend, but we'll see. That division sucks.
Yeah, them and the Saints were bad. Yeah.
So if they get Hurts and he blows up, they go 8-8, they could win the division. Who knows? Because that division's that bad. And if they get a wide receiver, let's say they get Chase, and then you have Chase and Hurts, they squeak out 8 games, they win the division, then you just keep going. You keep improving from that point. So we'll see what happens with Philadelphia. We'll see what happens with Indy. Gun to your head, if you're looking into your crystal ball and we're on the show 365 days from now, are we talking about Indianapolis having a better 2021, or are we talking about Eagles having a better 2021 in terms of that trade?
I mean, I'm going Indy. I mean, Indy's definitely going to make the playoffs, and they might make a deep run too. I mean, I think without a doubt, Indy. Okay.
That's cool. I mean, there is a situation where it works out for both. Indy makes a deep run and Jalen Hurts blows up. But yeah, I think Indy is going to be really excited if Hurts stays healthy. If Wentz stays healthy, 1, and 2, figures out his potential and gets out of that, whatever mind fuck he happened in Philadelphia, he overcomes that and he plays the way he did in 2017. Then Indianapolis is set up. News from yesterday, JJ Watt is not on the Texans anymore. He's on the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals went 8-8 last year. Kyler Murray had a really good first half of the season, then kind of hit a wall, a sophomore year wall, whatever you want to call it. They have DeAndre Hopkins, so Watt and Hopkins reunite. They were both in Texas, in Houston. Now they're in Arizona. What is the ceiling for this team now if under the assumption that Watt stays healthy and he's JJ Watt?
I don't know. Listen, as far as JJ Watt's choice to go there, I love it. I mean, honestly, again, he's on the back end of his career. I know there was rumors that he was going to go to Buffalo and he was going to go to Indy.
I heard Green Bay too.
Green Bay. So, I mean, again, I feel like with him and his wife, maybe they want to start a family. Who knows? But like Arizona,
it's the weather's nice.
It seemed like more of that kind of decision because, again, if you were going to win, you would go.
It doesn't seem like he made a decision to win a Super Bowl. Like he would have picked Green Bay if that was the case.
And on top of that, it came out that Indy, who is probably a better contender than the Cardinals are, offered him more money. So that's where again, the first thing that comes to my mind is he just wants to be out in Arizona. Again, can't blame him either. Like I said, back
maybe
end
that
of his
second
career,
year was a big deal too. That guarantee
could be, yeah. I mean, that's a great point too. I mean, and he's getting what? It's like 2-year, $31 million deal. So that's still a great amount of money. The other deals may have been 1 year, 18 mil. So he took a little bit less. And I think I saw that he said being familiar with Vance Joseph, the DC, and obviously kind of pairing with Chandler Jones, who's an absolute beast on that D line, and then reuniting with Hopkins is always kind of nice to see too. So it was an interesting decision, but I definitely get it. But however, not one that I think would be to kind of win. And going back to your original question about how they kind of stack up now, they're not the best team even in their division. So that's why it was kind division. Of a weird. Yeah. So, I mean, you have the Rams, obviously they just got Stafford. The Niners are definitely going to make a move for some sort of quarterback. And when they're healthy, they're amazing.
They went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago.
So I just, it's a weird decision for the Cardinals because you have to look, but hey, like, is he going to get us over the hump? Maybe, I don't know, but I definitely applaud them for still trying and not kind of bending the knee to San Fran or the Rams.
Yeah, and you got to throw in Seattle there. I know Russell's not happy, but they did go 12-4 last year.
Yeah,
and we don't know what's going to happen in the future, but if Seattle helps out Russell Wilson, then there's still a force to be reckoned with in that division. That is a tough division, and you got the young quarterback. I would guess, like in terms of youth and like just excitement about a future quarterback, I would give the Cardinals the edge in that division from that standpoint. Like who's the quarterback that you would trust over the next 6, 7, 8 years? I would go Murray before I go Wilson, who's getting up there in age, Stafford, who's getting older. And, San Francisco doesn't have a quarterback right now. So, but the problem with that is Watt's not young enough to make a decision based on that. He wants to win now, which is why I'm surprised he didn't go to Green Bay. Even under a 1-year deal, You're going to play with Aaron Rodgers, obviously on the other side of the field. He's offense on Watt's defense, but you're going to get a chance to go to the
Mhm.
Super Bowl. And I'm not sure that Arizona's there yet.
Yeah, it's again, it's I don't really know what the basis behind his decision was. And again, the truth of it, I'm sure we won't totally figure out, obviously, because again, it seems very simple. Hey, if you wanted to win, then you're gonna go to the Packers. It's just as simple as that. And I know he also said in his like little press conference that like, oh, like it's no shock that teams with good quarterbacks are gonna win and be successful. And he obviously was giving a shout out to Kyler Murray, but like, how are you so numb to MVP Aaron Rodgers? So it just I don't know. I'm just a little confused by the decision.
Yeah. It's one of those things, I guess. It's the end of his career. He wants to go where he wants to be happy. I'm sure he wants to win. I'm sure he
Yeah.
wants to win a Super Bowl. Everyone does, but there's a lot of factors where his wife wants to be, where he wants to
Hmm.
raise his family. There's a lot of things that go into where a person decides other than just winning. Like as fans, we just assume that
Hmm.
they're just going to go to the team that wants to win the most or is at best equipped to win the most.
Yeah.
But of course, the player wants
Hmm.
that, but there's also other things that go along with it. So Watt goes to the Cardinals for 2 years, I think $36 million, something in that ballpark. So we'll see how that works. Hopefully, he can stay healthy. That's something that Watts has struggled with over the
Yes.
second half of his career. So hopefully, he stays healthy
Hmm.
and Arizona gets to see him defensively for a full 16 game season. On the Dolphins side of things, Matt, Kyle Van Noy was released for cap space 1 year after signing a $51 million deal. Now, there's a lot of ways to kind of dissect that. But when I heard this, I was like, wait a minute. We yell at people like Deshaun Watson for not, quote unquote, honoring a contract.
Mm-hmm.
But when the owners do it and they cut a guy after 1 year after signing, giving them a big commitment, nobody really bats an
Mm-hmm.
eye. So it's always the player that's not loyal, but not the owner. That's something that I kind of thought when I heard this. I don't know if you kind of agree with me or
Yep.
not.
100%. And every time I question a player who wants to sit out, and I've done it with Deshaun Watson. I'm like, oh my, like they're paying him a ton of money. He should just play. And then stuff like this happens, and it really makes you remember that this is a ugly, ugly business, and it is a business at the very end of it all. And just a decision when I first saw it, I walk out of baseball practice, I see Van Noy got released. I'm like, released?
Well,
I'm like,
you thought it was
he
a
was
mistake.
a set. Yeah, I was like, he was a centerpiece to our defense. Plus, you just gave him a 4-year deal. Like I saw him on a bunch of interviews, and he's like, I'm very happy what's going on down here. He's in Miami. I'm sure he's got a house. He's raising his kids here. His family's here. It's just like, then you realize, wait, 1 year. And again, this is more a credit to, I would say, Chris Greer, the GM, the fact that they structure the contract that I'll get into in a second. But like 1 year and gone, he signed this mega deal for him after basically in the prime of his career. He's only 30 years old, thinking he's going to be somewhere for 4 years. And then after one season, gone. Just that's it. Now he's got to go through free agency again. And he has to go through free agency after having a so year, nothing great, but nothing bad. And then he also has to do it in a year where the uh, cap took a hit of like $20 million. So just for him, you somewhat feel bad in this scenario.
No, I feel very bad. I mean, of course he's gonna get 15 million still. I think he's still making money,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
But so I don't want
Yes.
to. I never want to be like, oh, I really feel bad for this guy making $15 million. But in terms of this, I
Yeah.
do feel bad. He played 14 games last year, 69 tackles, 10 tackles for a loss, career high, 6 sacks, 10 quarterback hits. It's just for me, it's the double standard between it's selfish for a
Hmm.
player to say I'm not playing, a la Deshaun Watson, but when an owner does it, it's a tough business. That I can't be sold
Hmm.
on that being okay. Like I don't agree with that. It should be if
Yeah.
it should be both ways. If we're gonna play the commitment card
Hmm.
and loyalty to a contract card, then the owners should honor the contract that they give their players the same way the players should own up to the contract that they agree to sign for the owners. Like
Hmm.
I don't know. I hate the way it's structured where if a player backs out, it's selfish and it's being non-loyal, and when an owner does it, it's just a tough business. Like I don't like that justification for it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. And I think an easy way to fix that is make all the contracts guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you get it. I feel like that would be a perfect way to just kind of end this power struggle and it basically it's a way for players to get deemed as divas, and then owners, you're never going to see anything about this in any media outlet saying how they're being hypocrites a little bit, because that just gets washed away. So it's very interesting to see situations like this, and again, it just wakes you up to the type of business this NFL is in, and kind of the loyalty that these owners and these GMs actually have to you. And again, they might sell you on longevity and this, that, and the other thing, but in reality, when you structure a deal a certain way, if they even see a little bit of a way to get out of that contract for whatever reason, they're probably going to do it.
Mm-hmm. So the Dolphins are going to save $9.75 million in salary cap space. That $9.75 million is can they use that to get a player to replace Van Noy that's going to be better in terms of production that they already had him for?
So when again, obviously now on the surface, emotionally, we're both like, that was dumb. Like, why would they do that? Then obviously you got to take a step back, really try to kind of put yourself in Chris Greer, the GM shoes, and see, all right, let's look at the production, because at the end of the day, if you're not producing, that's it. I know you read off his stats before. Again, had a career high in I believe it was
Tackles for a
hits or
loss.
something, like 10 QB hits. Yeah. So then you look at, he had 6 sacks. So then you look at another linebacker who was kind of a more of a depth guy that ended up getting a starting spot because one of the other linebackers got hurt, and that was Andrew Van Ginkel. He had 5 sacks, played pretty close to the amount of time that Van Noy played, and Van Noy did miss some time he had a hip injury and he broke his hand a little bit, still battled through it. But Van Ginkel is a guy who is like 24 compared to Van Noy, who's 30. And again, it doesn't sound like it's too off, but in football, that's decades
Yep.
basically.
That's a
And
lifetime.
you look at the salaries for Van Ginkel versus Van Noy. Van Noy slated in 2021 to get like 14 mil. Van Ginkel's getting like 1.5. So when you look at it that way and you say, all right, this guy Van Ginkel is doing pretty much the same as far as production is concerned, with less snaps, and he's getting paid a 15th of the price. So that's where I kind of understand it. Listen, I still wanted Van Noy. I still think he was a huge centerpiece to this team, but I'm gonna trust them
Mm-hmm.
to find whatever avenue they think via free agency or via the draft to replace Van Noy. Because again, they had a glaring need at linebacker before this with Van Noy. Now they definitely have a massive gaping hole at linebacker. But I get
Yeah.
it from the standpoint that they have a cheaper option on their roster right now who could fill in for that role. Now then you just have to replace whatever role Van Ginkel was on. So that's just kind of part of it, that if you're not going to perform to the level of the contract and there isn't a potential out, that's, I guess, then when they want to kind of cut guys and release guys. And I don't think this is going to be the last of kind of those big releases that we see of veterans or even people who are freshly onto new deals, because teams, like you said before, they have to cut down
Yeah.
many $1 million to get even just where they need to be under the cap, let alone have a ton of cap space to make some moves.
Yeah, I definitely understand it from a football perspective. I don't understand it from an ethical perspective, but we're not in the business of ethics.
Oh, agreed.
We're in the
Neither is
business
the
of winning.
NFL.
We're in the business of winning football games. And if they think that they can get
Yeah.
similar production at a cheaper price and then allocate the money they were spending on you to an area of need, then they're going to do it. It sucks. Van Noy probably bought
Yeah.
a very nice house in Miami, and now he has to ship out and move. He has no idea where he's going to play next year, and that sucks. And I feel for him.
Yeah.
In terms of the Dolphins and this move, in terms of the locker room, does this can something like this hurt the morale of that team? But or does
Um,
everyone kind of
I,
understand that this is the business they're in?
I want to say that the players are well aware of the situation of the NFL. Again, I don't want to say they're naive to it. Maybe the Dolphins, if any team, because they have a ton of younger guys. But so it's such a fine line when you are going over contracts and basically you're playing with people's money and stuff like that. Because as a player of a team, say you get drafted by them, you want to see that this team is willing to invest in you long term and give you contract extensions and all that good stuff. Now it may negatively impact them via free agency because big time free agents might be like, oh, like what's going to make you not basically cut me after a year like you did to Van Noy. So I think
Mhm.
agents this are basically dealing with the Dolphins, and I think dealing with any team basically need to really look at the fine print because the way, like you said before, there was a potential out to release him, only spend like 4 mil in dead cap, nothing, which is nothing to Stephen Ross, the owner. So they need to really I guess, negotiate the contracts in a way that suits them long term. Again,
Yeah.
that's something that I've really paid attention to, especially with football, is you may see the initial years and the amount of money, but the biggest thing is the guaranteed money. I mean, I remember vividly Darrell Revis signed a 4 year, 99 mil non-guaranteed contract with the Buccaneers, and he got cut after 1 year.
Yeah.
So it's like it sounds nice, it looks nice, but the guaranteed money is what actually matters. And that's the part of football that I hate so much. And that's
Mhm.
what's awesome about baseball is because it's all guaranteed. So
Yeah.
there's nothing fishy about it.
Yeah, it's gonna be definitely interesting. Definitely like next collective bargaining kind of negotiation, like how money
Yeah.
gets thrown around in the NFL if they make more guaranteed deals. Because the NFL is the one sport where you see what a guy signed for, and then there's like an asterisk and said, "Oh, well, only half of it's guaranteed." Like it's weird how it's set up. So we'll
Hmm.
see how. Because I feel like players are sick and tired of it because things like this happen where they
Hmm.
get labeled as disrespectful and selfish, and then the owners don't. So again, it'll be interesting to see over time now that players have more of a platform to see how
Yeah.
the winds change there. Let's talk about Wilson, who's another guy that's not happy with his team. So Russell Wilson's still unhappy with the Seattle Seahawks. Actually put out a list of teams that he'd actually welcome a trade to. So every time a player gives you a list, then it's real.
Mm.
Like we kind of when we first heard the story, we
Yeah.
were like, oh, this is kind of like this kind of maybe like an empty threat kind of thing. Now that there's teams out there that he put out that said I would go to these teams, that's a real threat. So the Bears, Cowboys, Raiders, and Saints. Thinking about it right now, Wilson on the Cowboys would be terrifying. I think that would be a great move for Dallas.
Hmm.
It would not be a good move for me.
Hmm.
I'd be very upset. But
Yeah.
I think out of all the four teams on the list, I think Dallas is the one that Wilson can make a Super Bowl contender. I like Chicago, but we don't know if they're keeping Allen Robinson. The Saints, I think they're going to stick with Wilson. I mean, I'm sorry, they're going to stick with Jameis Winston.
Hmm.
And then the Raiders, I don't think they're ready to give up on Carr yet. And I think
Yeah.
they're looking at Wilson as more like an older guy. We might as well keep Carr. I think the Cowboys, if they
Hmm.
can't figure out the Dak situation, I think that would be a very interesting destination.
I mean, I think you might see a kind of a franchise tag and trade Dak for Wilson, and maybe then
Mhm.
the Seahawks extend Dak. I think that would be pretty cool. And I mean, again, on paper, if Russ is with the Cowboys, they're winning the division. It doesn't matter. Like they're winning the
Yeah.
division. What they do after that is going to be up to them. But just to be able to say, hey, like we're going to guarantee winning the division, that's an awesome start right now because in the NFC West I don't think the Seahawks are winning anything right there.
Mhm.
I think they're a worse team than the Rams, and now you have the Cardinals, like we mentioned earlier with Watt. They're getting better. The Niners are going to get a quarterback. They're getting better. And then on top of that, the Seahawks have no draft capital. They don't have no first, no second, and no first next year too, to even get the help that he
Because
wants.
of the
And then
Jamal Adams trade.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then you figure they're going to extend Jamal Adams, which is going to eat up some of the cap space too. So it's such a weird thing because all Russ wants is some offensive line help, but all Seattle's doing is giving away their assets to potentially get help on the offensive line. So I don't
Yeah.
know what the
Or their
Seahawks are going to
defense.
do.
Like
Yeah.
if they want to do this philosophy that Pete Carroll seems to do everywhere he goes, or I'm gonna have an
Mhm.
okay offense, nothing great, but have a defense that's just gonna eat people alive, then you don't need Russell Wilson.
Mhm.
Because Russell Wilson,
Yeah.
I think I said this last time we spoke. Russell Wilson, when they won Super Bowls, is not the transcendent talent that Wilson is right now. Because Seattle didn't
Good point.
need him to be that because they had the Legion of Boom. Now that
Yeah.
Wilson has evolved into this top 10 quarterback and he has more of a voice
Mhm.
and more of I guess of a platform to speak his mind and say what he wants and have,
Mhm.
have leverage in that conversation. If you're Seattle, why would you want to deal with that if your head coach's philosophy is to have, a game manager and have an awesome defense? At this point, wouldn't it make sense for both parties to kind of part ways?
So this is one of those, again, weird situations because again, on the surface, I would agree 100%. Now, there's a lot of other factors that people don't really talk about. They only want to say, all right, it makes sense for Wilson to leave. Like he's angry. Let's get him off the team. But it would be a dead cap hit of like $38 million if the Seahawks trade him. So right off the bat, there's their first reason why they wouldn't want to trade him. Then on top of that, you have an aging coach in Pete Carroll. He doesn't want to go through a rebuild. Like he just doesn't. And he has his sure thing in Russell Wilson. So at the very least, he knows his offense is going to be competent. At the very least, competent. If he brings in, say, a rookie quarterback, he has no idea really what he's going to get from him. So it's going to be a weird situation where it would benefit Russ a ton to get traded, but it wouldn't really benefit the Seahawks much at all unless they get some crazy compensation for him.
Or if Seattle decides they want to rebuild. And in that case, you might as well get rid of
Well,
both
that's
Carroll
yeah,
and Wilson. Because
I would yeah, definitely.
is this team close to a Super Bowl right now with the way their roster is constructed? Their defense might be. But if their offense isn't going to if they're not going to help out Wilson in terms of protecting him, are you going to be able to compete with Brady and Rodgers and
Mhm.
all these other really good and upcoming teams in the NFC? I don't know. I don't know if that's possible. So it might be just time to say goodbye to everything. Like it was a very good run. It was on the brink of a dynasty. If they would have handed the ball off, they would have won back to back. They won
Yeah.
a ton of games. But
Mhm.
at some point, and this happens with every team, at some point some generations just end. And very
Yeah.
rarely is it a good ending. A lot of times it doesn't work out.
Mhm.
The ending of Eli Manning wasn't very ceremonial. They didn't win a Super Bowl and carry
Yeah.
him off into the sunsets. You get very few Peyton Mannings. They had to carry
Yeah.
Brett Favre off the field as a Viking. Like that doesn't look good. Other
Yeah.
sports, I mean, Jordan played for the Wizards. Like that didn't look
Mhm.
good. Jeter was carried off on a broken ankle. That was the end of him. Like it's not always pretty. And maybe it's better
Yeah.
for Seattle to completely move on. So we'll see if, as you said, if Russell goes to Dallas, it's over in the NFC East. That would be that would
Mhm.
just wrap it up. Like the Eagles, Giants, and Washington shouldn't even show up, in my opinion. But we'll see what happens. Moving
Yeah,
on
it's
before
one of
we
those
go.
situations. Oh,
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
real quick, real quick. Yeah, real quick. It's one of those situations where like the Seahawks have to look at basically where are they going to be, say even just say 2 years from now after this upcoming season, and the names you listed before of quarterbacks, Brady and Rodgers, those guys are going to be gone soon. So if
Mhm.
I'm the Seahawks, I see this as a way to potentially get a lot of compensation for a Russ, maybe even flip Jamal Adams again to a team who wants him. And you kind of just say, hey, listen, we're going to basically just stink this year again. But hopefully, if you do it the right way, you're going to stink 1 year. You're going to get a good draft pick. You're going to accumulate more draft picks. You're going to clear any dead cap you want. And then you're going to use this 2021 offseason to basically build up your offensive line the best you can with what you have, and then you continue to do so the next year. And then if there's a quarterback in that 2022 draft class, you draft him and you make sure that you have all the necessary kind of parts on the team for him to be successful right away. And I think you just say, hey, listen, we're going to bite the bullet this year. All it's doing is making Stafford older, Brady older, Rodgers older. So they're all going to be on their way out. If I'm the Seahawks, I want to kind of restart the process
just
a
to
little
get ahead
bit,
of
and
it.
then
Get ahead of the rebuild
exactly.
now. By the time you're
Yes.
ascending, then the competition now will be
Yes.
descending, and then you'll be all alone up there. So that makes perfect sense. I
Exactly.
totally see them doing that. I don't think they will. I think they're going to run it back.
They should
But
though. Yeah.
but that's definitely an option for them, and that's a good option. Like I
Mhm.
know the fans won't like it. Like the fans never like when you say, okay, we're
But
going to tear it down and build up, but it
yeah,
shouldn't be a long rebuild for Seattle if they decide to go that
no,
route.
not at all. Mhm.
One more thing, people don't like your mock drafts, Matt.
I know. I
I
don't.
saw you doing some mock drafts on Twitter. Some people are no, they would never do that. No, you're an idiot. The Dolphins
Yeah.
aren't going to do that. People get
Yeah.
really offended if you say that the Dolphins are going to take someone, and the other person doesn't think so. People get really ticked off.
Yeah. So to address those people, first of all, I'm very, very thankful for your feedback. However, this is my mock draft. This is what I would do if I were the Dolphins. I'm not guessing what the Dolphins will do. This is what I want to do. And also, on top of that, if I say the Dolphins are going to draft Jalen Waddle at 3, and then someone says no, well, no, why? Give me a reason
Yeah,
why. And
give
then
me a name.
if you're yeah, and then if your rebuttal is Jamar Chase at 3, all right, well, you're picking one of two stud wide receivers. So
What's the
am I really
difference?
that off?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. So am I really that off? I'm not saying, hey, we're picking Travis Etienne at 3. That would be absurd, obviously. But it's my mock draft. So it is, I want to do what I want to do with it. So you can't really tell me no. And then if you do, I prefer if you say, hey, I think they should go down this route and this route and the other route and this
And
route
then
and
you
the
can
other
have a
route. Not
conversation.
just no. Yes, exactly. I am all for conversations, but we have to make it make sense. Saying
Yeah.
no doesn't
No.
do anything.
It's also really annoying if someone just says no.
And then I have to
Like
like it just because I'm a nice guy.
it's so funny. I thought that was really funny. We got I have our last episode with the mock draft in front of us now. We got a thumbs down, so apparently someone thought we were an idiot.
A thumbs down.
Yeah, we
Come
got a
on.
thumbs down.
I'll take any reaction though. I'll take any reaction though.
It's fun, but yeah, the mock drafts I've been more into it than I have in previous years. People get super into it, and I think it's unhealthy. But it's fun. It's fun.
Especially before free agency when you don't know what the team is doing. Like if say we're doing a mock draft for the Giants and we have all these different pieces that we're drafting and they decide that they want to go quarterback in the first round, that would change every single mock draft we've ever done for them. So it's one of those things that you should do after free agency. However, I'll be doing mock drafts tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I mean, it doesn't change what I'm going to do. But if I was a sane human being, I would wait till after free agency.
Exactly. Something I saw on SportsCenter this morning. Your boy Tua said Mac Jones is a quote more mobile Tom Brady.
Which isn't hard to be more mobile.
Agreement? Do we see that?
It's again, player comparisons are such a.
Is he just hyping up his Alabama guy?
Yeah, I mean, again, I tip of the cap to him. It's his friend. I mean, they played with each other for 3 years. I mean, they basically grew up together in Alabama in the QB room. But it's like it's one of those things when you look at comparisons, especially for QBs. Does anyone ever get compared to a bad quarterback or even an average quarterback?
That's a good point.
You're comparing Zach Wilson to Mahomes. You're comparing Mac Jones now to Tom Brady. It's like why does no one get compared to say like Ryan Tannehill or Jimmy Garoppolo or Jay Cutler? Like it's always like these Hall of Fame elitists. It's like Trey Lance is the next Lamar Jackson. Like
because that's
Lamar
what
Jackson
people
doesn't even know what he is yet.
That's what people
I get it from the I get it.
I wonder if behind the scenes there are scouts that say, Mac Jones is going to be Cutler. But that's not going to that's not newsworthy, right? We'd rather listen to the scouts that says he's going to be the next Peyton Manning. But yeah, that is interesting. Everyone's the next Brady.
That is something that fans and anybody kind of watching these ESPNs and NFL Network stuff like that need to realize when the draft rolls around. Because as of right now, you would think there would be probably 6 quarterbacks drafted in the first round. Quarterbacks sell tickets. They sell you eyes on the draft on draft night. So we as fans need to pump the brakes a little bit because we have no idea. As of right now, there's probably alleged if I went off what the media was saying, there'd be 5 quarterbacks drafted within the top 10, let alone the first round. That's just because they're pumping them up, pump them up, pump them up, pump them up. I haven't heard a peep about who the best cornerback is, or who the best linebacker is, or who the best offensive lineman is outside of Sewell. I haven't even heard him mention his name, but it's quarterback. It's quarterback.
Always
it's quarterback.
quarterbacks.
So that's kind of something we need to take with a grain of salt.
A lot of people watch that, and they watch McShay, and they watch Kuiper, and they watch all these guys talk about the quarterbacks. And then if you're a team that's in position to probably draft a quarterback, and then you don't, let's say someone picks Sewell in the top 5, like Atlanta, right? And the Atlanta fan has been programmed to like, we got to get one of these awesome quarterbacks. But if you really look at it, and the people in the Atlanta Falcons organization, they realize that it would be better for their franchise to not take the quarterback and take this guy instead, rather than the quarterback. That then fans get upset because it's always, why didn't you take the quarterback? So, they're much smarter than we are. There's a reason we're doing this.
Yes.
And there's a reason they're doing that. And that's because they know more football than we do. Like, with the naked eye, they see so much more than we do. Like, we can watch the same game tape that they watch, and then they see
oh my God,
a million different things that we can't see. It's amazing. So,
without a doubt. Without a doubt.
58 days until the draft. How many mock drafts will you do until then?
I started keeping count. I made an account on the draftnetwork.com, and I started kind of keeping count. I'm at like, through like a week, I'm at like 3 legit ones. Like I do like
3,
maybe
so that's a 3.4, 3.5.
Yeah, something like that.
At what point because I'm curious, at what point in mock drafts do you start thinking, okay, this might be a trade, or are you always just straight through, they're all picking?
Oh no, I'm at least for the Dolphins, like, without a doubt, they should trade, and I think they will trade. Now I have to pay a little extra if I want to get the ability to trade in the account, but I ain't gonna do that just yet.
You have to pay extra for trades
for this account, yeah. And honestly, I wouldn't doubt it if by the time after free agency ends, and I know the team is set outside of the draft, I'll probably do a mock draft today. Like, not even kidding. It's gonna be
awesome.
Sick.
Now, what do you do in between mock drafts? Do you read? Do you watch?
So the biggest thing, I'll give you my little lowdown here.
Okay, I'm interested.
The main reason, yes. So the main reason I do mock drafts first is to see, all right, who should the Dolphins get? What would be an ideal, perfect dream scenario? Then I use it to kind of study these guys because, again, I don't watch much college football. I really don't think anyone really does, to the point where all these prospects. So
especially where we're from in the Northeast, nobody really loves. Like, if you go south, like, it's
we're not watching Rutgers,
religion.
Yeah.
Like, but in like the New York area, we're kind of like, eh.
Yeah. So I like to see basically each team's need, who they tend to draft every single time I do a draft, and then you see, all right, here's this caliber of players that always seems to be drafted here. And then here's this caliber of players that always seems to be drafted here. So then I get a better sense of kind of the talent evaluation. Because, again, I don't know the talent, but these companies and these websites do it for us, basically. And I like to get a gist of the tiers of players and where maybe you can steal a guy in the second round who usually is drafted in the first round. Maybe he's that level talent. So I like doing it for that aspect. And that familiarizes myself with who the better players are versus who the worst players are, without me watching game tape on every single prospect.
Yeah. I some people do watch game tape, and they just do all day long, and then they make their mock drafts.
Yeah.
And then they post it, and nobody listens. Nobody watches. I think it's definitely an acquired taste to be a mock draft guy. It's really funny. But I enjoyed doing the mock draft last week or 2 weeks ago.
Same here.
I think we're going to do it again soon, eventually. Maybe when we see some free agents fall off the board. Free agency is this month.
We need a little bit.
Free agency is March.
It's supposed to be, I think, in like 2 weeks, something like that, is when like it officially opens and stuff like that. But again, obviously we saw with the JJ Watt deal that it's kind of like always pending everything, and everything's kind of always happening.
But wasn't JJ Watt like a special exemption in terms of, or he could have signed, but like not a lot of unrestricted guys can.
So I think it was because he got released. So I'm pretty sure a guy like Van Noy now can sign elsewhere because he got released, I guess, before this X deadline that they have. So now I'm pretty sure Van Noy can get signed somewhere.
Free agency starts on March 17th. So we got 2 weeks until that.
15 days.
15 days. Exactly. Perfect. So that'll be a good time. Until then, do we have anything else you want to talk about before we end things?
No,
because I know you have homework to do.
Excited to. Yes, I do. It's just excited to see basically throughout this whole offseason and the whole year if Watson and Wilson remain on their respective teams or do they actually get traded?
Yeah, that's going to be something that we're going to pay attention to all year long, all summer long. And if it does happen, that day it happens, like the whole world's going to stop. Like people are going to go crazy.
Oh, I know.
Never quarterbacks of caliber get up and leave before. So it'll be a first time.
Can't wait. Can't wait.
All right. It'll be a good time. But until then, we're going to sign off. For Matt Ferrara, my name is Glen Denegris. See you later. Thank you for watching Ice the Kicker, and we'll see you in the next episode.